Hello, this is Roland. Welcome. Today I want to read something to you from one of my favorite books. It's called The Pursuit of God. The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. Some of you are familiar with A.W. Tozer. He did a lot of writing. He was very highly regarded. And up in Redding, California, Simpson University, a Christian college, their theological seminary is I think it's called the A.B. Tozer Institute or Seminary or something like that. Mr. A.B. Tozer was a very nice man. And I want to read you the beginning of the preface to his book, The Pursuit of God. This is what Mr. Tozer says. In this hour of all but universal darkness, one cheering gleam appears. Within the fold of conservative Christianity, there are to be found increasing numbers of persons whose religious lives are marked by a growing hunger after God Himself. They are eager for spiritual realities and will not be put off with words, nor will they be content with correct interpretations of truth. They are athirst for God, and they will not be satisfied till they have drunk deep at the fountain of living waters. Well, you know something? Those are the kinds of people that I'm looking for. Okay? People who are athirst for God. Okay? They have a thirst for God. Christ said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness." And so some people have a thirst for God. They're looking for something real. Okay? Now, those are the kind of people that I am looking for, because I might be of a little bit of help, okay, to such people. Now, bear in mind that I'm just a little person. I'm just an old fellow who has a little, very, 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 very modest radio program that I pay for myself, and just a very little fellow. Nevertheless, I have something of value. You know, you don't have to be the greatest, most highly recognized person in the world who millions of people know. You know, like you've heard the old expression, who was Einstein's teacher? And Einstein's father and Einstein's mother. They did a pretty good job, didn't they? You see what I mean? So who knows them? Who knows what they did? And yet, whatever they did, it was somehow beneficial. So, and you've all had teachers. Look, you've all had teachers in your life. When you were a kid, you had one or two teachers that were special. And nobody knows them. If you told me your teacher's name, I wouldn't know it. Nobody else would either, except for a handful of people. And yet that person made a big difference in your life. You see what I mean? So that's what I would like to be, is a person, although little and modest, who could make a difference in your life. Now, if you are athirst for God, okay, or let's put it another way, you like the truth, you like to hear the truth, and you don't like injustice, okay, and you have an interest in matters religious or matters spiritual, not so much to study them, but you care about life. See, you know there's something deeper to life than just eating, drinking, and texting and playing video games. You know that, okay? And you're looking for that, okay? Maybe not constantly, because you have your other things to do. You have your work and other things to do and friends and so on. But always at the back of your mind, there's that, and once in a while you see something or hear something that strikes a chord, see, because it calls you back to that first love, love of truth, love of goodness, love of innocence. I'll never forget, I was in Chicago. This was 30 years ago. Okay? More than 30 years ago, I was in Chicago. And I had a little apartment. I lived by myself. I wasn't married at the time. It was like 35 years ago. Well, see, more than 35 years ago. So there I was. And it was early Sunday morning, and I always put the radio on. I was scanning the dial, and there was some talk show. Some talk host was interviewing someone. He was actually interviewing Vice Admiral James Stockdale, okay, who I never had heard of before. When I was there listening to the interview, and then the host said something like, Vice Admiral James Stockdale at that time was at the Hoover Institute down at Stanford University. He had been in Vietnam. He had been captured by North Vietnamese. He was shot down over Vietnam and was held for over 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton, in that infamous prison, as a political prisoner, and he was tortured, brutalized, and so on. But he maintained dignity. He maintained discipline. He did not betray his country. See, he came out with flying colors. Well, anyway, but I didn't know, I'd never heard of him before. But I was just listening to this interview lightly. I was half asleep. I was laying in bed, half asleep. And the interviewer said something like, well, isn't it nice that we have all these group activities where everybody gets together and sort of as a group decision? And Vice Admiral Stockdale broke in and said, now, just hold on just a minute there. Just hold on just a minute there. You know, sometimes the consensus can be wrong. What's needed is a person as a leader with principle. See, a leader of principle, with understanding and wisdom and common sense, something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said. But you know what? I leapt out of bed. Okay? Because what he said, the quality of the perception and the understanding that I saw in him just grabbed me. Okay? And I immediately knew he was a good guy and that he had understanding. Okay? And I just saw that. So how did I know that? How did I see that? Well, there was something in me, see, that yearned for that sort of thing. So as the years went by, gradually, I guess I yearned more and more. And then eventually, when I got to be around 39, 40 years old, then I began to have a change in my life as God entered my life. And then that was the answer. See, that was what I'd been looking for. But anyway, all along I had been athirst for God, and I didn't even know it. See, I didn't even know it. Even when I was a little kid, I kind of liked reading about psychology and about religion. And when I was a teenager, like 12 years old, 13 years old, I used to listen to the World Tomorrow. It was a Bible prophecy radio program on the radio. And so here I was, this little kid, listening to that. You know, 1 minute I was playing marbles with looking at my baseball cards, or out playing catch, playing baseball, or watching cartoons, and the next minute I was listening to Bible prophecy. You see what I mean? Well, it's because I had an interest in such things. Okay. So, a lot of you have a thirst for God. You don't even know it, but you do. Okay, and you just need to hear somebody talk about it inside. You need to hear something that awakens you back to your first love again. You see. But here's what the point of all of this little video that I'm making here is, that what happens to people is that they become entangled and meshed in the world. See, the world has a very strong pull through our emotions. And through emotions, from the time you were a little kid, you were made to react emotionally to this and emotionally to that. From the time we're little children, we are emotionalized, and we begin to react emotionally to a lot of things. Now, it's only natural because we're little children. We're just little egos. Okay? And so it's natural. That's why we have parents and good authorities. Parents are to be there to make sure that we don't become excessively emotional, or that we're not traumatized by people who would prey upon our emotions. You see what I mean? Parents are there to set limits so that the child has one piece of cake but not 5 pieces of cake. You see what I mean? That runs and plays when other kids are there and laughs and laughs and laughs. You know how kids are. But then at a certain point, it's time for the other kids to go home, and it's time to go to bed, see? And not just keep going until eventually, you know what happens when kids are running around laughing, and getting all carried away? You know what eventually happens. Then pretty soon something goes wrong and they start crying. One of them gets hurt or something. So parents are there to watch very carefully, like a mother hen guards her chickens, to make sure that things don't get out of hand. Okay? And so that's what parents are for. See, parents, the adults are supposed to be outgrowing their emotions. As you get older, you become less emotional and less, as reason holds sway. Reason, understanding, wisdom, okay? Calmness, patience. Okay? So maybe your kids are emotional, but you're calm. See? Maybe your partner is emotional, but you're calm. And especially you dads. The more emotional people become, or the more unreasonable they become, the calmer you become, the more reasonable you become. You see? Well, that's part of growing up and maturing. But it's also part of the spiritual life. See? The spiritual life is to begin responding to what you know in your heart, to principle, okay, to what you wordlessly know, responding to it rather than reacting emotionally to things on the outside. See? And to the extent that you can override your emotions through responding and staying close to, see, the inner light, your center of dignity, your ground of being, to the extent that you're close to it and respond to it and look to your intuition, see, to that extent you will be independent and you will be less emotional, see, and less influenceable, and less suggestible, and less upsettable, and less traumatizable, see? So having said all of that, some of you are going around, you're all emotional. And then, of course, there's resentment and anger. See, sometimes with a cause, sometimes people have been unfair or unjust. See, but the problem is that the resentment and the anger interfere with your ability to stay close to what you know in your heart. See, it makes it more, so the more emotional you are, the more suggestible you are, the more upset you are. And then when you get upset and you get emotional and you get excited, then you get lost in your thinking and imagination. And then the more lost you are in your imagination, the more lost you are in thinking, analyzing, trying to figure things out, worrying. Okay? The more you're lost in that, once again, the farther you are from your own inner ground of good. So now, what you've been looking for all your life, a thirst for God. And you had a love of justice, a love of goodness, a love of innocence. See, a love of goodness. A love of God you didn't even know it was, but it is. Okay? You have been unable to find it because you keep getting knocked off center. You keep getting emotional, you keep getting upset, you keep getting angry, you keep getting nervous, and then you worry. And so there you are, upset and worried, and you're far away from that inner ground of good. Okay? And then you start resenting yourself, or you begin to feel despair or doubt and despair, because you're far away. So what's the answer? The answer is to get back in touch with that inner ground of good and stay in touch with it. Okay? That's why I've made the little meditation. See, just all it is just a little tool. It's a little 6-minute thing, but it shows you how to become still, get back in touch with your own inner ground of good, okay, and become a little bit detached from the world. See, a little bit of separation, a little bit of distance. Okay, so you're closer to what you know in your heart, to that center of calmness. See, and then you observe what's happening on the outside. You observe it, you watch it, but it doesn't affect you like it once did. It doesn't influence you like it once did. It doesn't upset you like it once did. It doesn't mislead you as it once did. See? And then all these sequelae of getting upset, you know, including the upset tummy and headache and, you know, making mistakes and all the things that follow from being upset. And, they begin to fall by the wayside. So you become calmer, and you are less emotional, eventually not emotional at all. Then you begin to see things with reason, with perception, with objectivity, and you make better decisions, and you're there for your kids, for your partner. You're not always lost in thinking. And then from that beautiful state where you're a little closer to your inner ground of good, you're actually a little closer to God by way of His light, His inner light, in which you can perceive, in which you can know whether to turn right or turn left. See? Say yes or no. You just sort of know from within. So you have perception. You can also see through deceit. See? And so you have all these wonderful benefits. And so life starts to improve dramatically. Okay? Then you begin to have understanding from this, through this inner light, and through your rapport with it. Then you begin to understand and see and understand the why of things. Okay? And begin to see spiritual truths, which before you kind of liked. You read them or heard people talk about them. You liked them, but you weren't sure. Now you'll see them for yourself. Just a whole world of benefits. And another set of emotions, a higher set of emotions like wonder, joy, patience. A higher set of emotions that aren't really emotions so much as they are ways of responding, see, which comes from within. Okay? So you have endless patience. See, it comes from a wellspring of good. It comes from God. See? So you have a wellspring of endless patience. See? Endless understanding. Endless growth. See? Being perfected in God's light. And that, see, being close to God and close to good and close to what is true and what is noble. See, that's what you have been looking for all your life. So the meditation helps you to get out of the squirrel cage of thinking and runaway emotions, which now are interfering with your spiritual side of life. They're interfering with your spiritual walk, okay, which maybe you see that. And you see the stress, too, which comes from the emotional reacting. So the little meditation will help you to get started on this wonderful spiritual journey. Okay. My name is Roland.